Hello, this is Callie Hammond, and welcome to the Resiliency Coach podcast. This podcast showcases people who have faced difficult times and how they got through it. These experiences are real and sometimes raw. The people who share their stories are here to tell you you're not alone in your struggle. They share the tools and resources they use in healing. If you're looking for solutions for getting through tough times, contact us at www.resiliency.coach. So today I'm interviewing my friend, Randi Wallace. Randi knows firsthand how divorce can have a devastating effect on all involved. She was impacted by 3 divorces during her childhood, and she could see her daughter suffer when her own marriages crumbled. From the ashes of trauma, she created Evergreen Empowerment, the co-parenting coaching community centered around assisting parents in creating the life they want. So Randi, thank you so much for being my guest today and for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Would you please share your story with us now?
Okay. Well, when I was 2, my mom decided to up and leave my dad and told me he passed. And that's why we were leaving. And when I was 13, I found out that that wasn't true, that they just got divorced. This was after going through a divorce with her second husband, meeting her third husband, who in turn adopted my sister and I, and he is my dad through and through. He is an incredible man. And then I found out at 13 that my mom and my biological dad had just gotten divorced. And then I could potentially find him, which led me to, have that experience that I was unwanted and I was unlovable, because if I was wanted and loved, my dad would not have abandoned me. And that also meant that I had no friends, because I was running that story through my head, because why would someone who is unwanted and unlovable have friends? And so my senior year of high school, it got really bad, and I tried to no longer be here. And thankfully that didn't work. And then in college, I got married to someone that caused a lot of emotional and mental abuse, kept me very small, kind of squashed that light I had inside of me. So I was essentially a mouse kind of person, very quiet, kept to myself, continued to not have any friends. Then I found out that he had an affair with someone, and then we got divorced, and I met someone else, and it ended up being the same person, different skin. But when we were getting divorced, it brought all those high school feelings back, and I thought about ending my life again. And the only reason I didn't is my daughter woke up and started crying, and that put me into mom mode. And I vowed that night, never again will I ever be in that emotional state. Fast forward 5 years, once again, another emotional and mentally, occasionally nutritionally abusive relationship. And I met Angie Fenimore, the creator of Calliope Writing Coach, where I started to tell my story so that I could help other people going through divorce through my story. Because when I went through my first divorce, I couldn't find really any advice out there in book form, because I'm a bookworm. Everybody had been happily married for 30 years. They had no idea what I was going through. So I wanted to be there to help the people from my experience, where I actually know what it's like to go through it as a kid and as a parent. And so I finally started standing up for myself and using my voice, which in turn caused the end of my second marriage. And so I've taken my trauma that I've gone through and turned it around to help other people so that they can get through the process of divorce, whether it be the kids or the parents, powerfully, and so that they're not taking any abuse, trauma, stories that they've created in their minds from that last relationship into the next one, so that they can have that fresh start. They can be that person they need to be in order to get the person they actually want. Because if we work on ourselves and do that, the kids thrive. And that's what it's really all about, is breaking those cycles so that the kids thrive and not bring generational trauma and pass it on to them.
With these divorces, was it you that asked for the divorces, or was it the husbands who asked for the divorces?
The first one, it was my husband. We've been married for nearly 10 years. The second one, I was starting to see that I wasn't growing, and I'd outgrown him, and I wasn't progressing at life, and it was just very stagnant, and I didn't like it. And he walked into, in the middle of all of this, I had back surgery because my body keeps score and decided, hey, it's time to deal with your trauma. And he walked in a couple days before my surgery and asked me if I wanted to be in the relationship anymore. And I said, no, can I go back to sleep now? And so I asked for that one, definitely. And that was a huge step, because that was me standing up for myself and standing in my power to become who I needed to be.
When you finally had the opportunity to know that your father wasn't passed, but he was alive, did you seek him out?
I did not. However, when I was about 21, 22, I got this random phone call from a lady saying they had very important information to talk to me about. And it was a little bit weird. So I wasn't answering. She kept calling, kept calling. Finally, I answered. And, this person asked me, is your biological father this person? And I said, yes. Is your mom's name this? Yes. And it was kind of really unsettling. And then I get, oh, by the way, I'm your sister. What? And so it turned out I have an older brother and an older sister that I never knew existed. And she's the one that found me and then connected me with him. She said that the two of them had been looking for me for 2 years. Or I guess 3 years, because it was been since I was 18, because they could actually do something about it then. And finally found me. I connected with him, and then we had a bit of a falling out, and that's okay. He is who he is, and I am who I am, and it's, we're okay.
So what kind of tools did you use to be able to, one, accept that? Because not everybody can accept that, and to overcome that feeling of feeling rejected, I believe you used the word rejected, of feeling that way, as well as how did you overcome the trauma of the abuse from the marriages, as well as the divorce, and so on and so forth. What tools did you use, or do you use?
So the biggest concept is something called the vicious cycles, where you look at what actually happened, and then you look at what did you create because of what happened. So my mentor from Calliope sat down with me, and we started talking about those deep rooted stories of, I'm unlovable, I'm unwanted, I'm unworth it, like I'm not worth it. And we looked at what happened. Well, what happened is my parents didn't work. They each had their own drama, their own trauma that they were dealing with, and they didn't work. So they separated and got divorced. That's it. It had nothing to do with me. And from that, I created all these stories that then turned around and ran my life. So being able to see that, then it's like, oh, I can start processing through, oh, okay. It wasn't that I was unworth it. I wasn't unlovable. It's they didn't work and my mom disappeared. That's what happened. My biological father was just dealing with what he was dealing with and his addictions and issues, that he needed to work on himself instead of trying to find me. And that's what he did. And so that's kind of what I use a lot of is, okay, what actually happened? Be it my kids getting bullied. What happened? Oh, words were said. That's it. Just words were said. You created this meaning. And then learning that the way people show up for you is a reflection of themselves. So my dad doing all this had nothing to do with me. So I can accept he is who he is and has his traumas. And even though it caused me some traumas, that was my choice, even though I didn't realize it at 2 years old and 7 and 9 and 12 and 13. Now looking at it, I can see that it wasn't about me. It had nothing to do with me. So I can either accept it or I can continue down this road of trauma and not fulfill my life. So like that's a big tool I use. Is a lot of, kind of cognitive behavioral therapy you hear a lot about in psychology, where I have those automatic thoughts, and then whether or not they're real or if there's some truth basis to them. If there's not, then what's the point of holding on to that? So the other tool is I'm very empathic. I've had a lot of training from other highly empathic people of learning to not take things on, learning to ground myself, to shield myself from what other people are doing so that it doesn't affect me and I can be who I want to be. And if someone doesn't like it, that's on them. They need to go deal with that trigger. So really learning trigger therapy and all that stuff is the tools that I've used and learned to come out of all that. And that's what I like to use with other people.
That's awesome. Yeah. And not a lot of people, I understand that perception is not reality. However, our reality is based on our perception.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, like you said, the stories we tell ourselves that we create. It's like, sometimes it's kind of fun. You sit in the park and you watch people and you say, okay, that girl, she's wearing a red dress because she's going on a date. But who really knows in reality what's going on? But you're making that story up as if it's real. And sometimes you play a game, like let's guess what they're doing or whatnot, and it's kind of fun. But the problem is that when we do that in our own lives and we create our own reality out of those stories and then live it, that's where it becomes problematic, especially if it's based on trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Because then as that story continues to echo in our mind, we will continue to live that course of reality of what we've set before ourselves. And you're right, when we're young, we don't have a choice at that moment, but we do in essence. And as an adult, we can actually change that course by realizing and reflecting on what is real and changing that perspective. And I love that those are the tools that you use and have used.
They say, like, our brains don't know the difference between dream or reality. And it's our job to interpret it as such. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's that's why we can watch a movie that is so fanciful and enjoy it. It's because our filters, our imagination, our unconscious has taken that filter off and allowed us to be able to, for a moment, believe in that dream world that on a movie is created. And we can create those dream worlds in our own life for good and for bad. We can create a dream world where everything is happy, and which it can actually be, or we can create a very dark world. And either way, it can send us on that course that will continue to spiral into that direction. And so, yes, yeah, I like that we can create our own reality based on truth or not truth. If there's anybody listening, is there that may have experienced any things that you've experienced, what piece of advice would you give them?
I would say find someone that you can work with, be it someone like myself or a trauma-informed therapist. My therapist uses internal family systems. So it's taking those parts of you that you create because of all these stories and because of the trauma, because everything else that you use to protect yourself, and break them down and actually acknowledge and thank them for being part of you so that you can move on and let go. That would be my biggest advice. I'm happy to have a conversation with just about anybody. And, it's not always a good fit. So find someone that's a very good fit that you feel safe, you feel comfortable with, that can take you on that journey of self-discovery and healing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that we always tell people on this podcast to seek out assistance because there is hope. And that the pain that you're going through right now, one, it won't last. Two, are people out there that have one experienced that pain and know the path to recovery. And three, there are people that may not have had that path, but already have the tools for recovery. Because just because somebody hasn't experienced something doesn't mean that they don't have the tools that can help. And yeah, those are good tools to have to be able to help people and to recognize that there are tools out there, that you can use them and that you can get relief from the pain. And it
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be there. So thank you for your advice and your tools that you shared with us. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to advice or tools that you use?
I guess my biggest, outside of that piece of advice, is be authentically you. You know, the more you are who you say you are, you'll start attracting people that are in alignment with that. And if something, some place, person, thing is not in alignment with where you want to go in your life, it's time to let that go. And surround yourself with people that are and places are in alignment with who you want to be as a person. Because who you are, your individuality, is amazing. It's enough. And it's perfect, whole, and complete as it is. No one's broken. No one needs fixing. I can't stand those phrases. It's your life patterns have taken you in a direction that's inconsistent with who you want to be or who you say you are. And that's all it needs is redirection. There's nothing to fix, nothing broken. And there is something to pull from every situation. I don't think of it as I failed my marriages. I don't have two failed marriages. I have two very deep, very profound learning opportunities for growth. And there's growth in everything. You just have to look for it.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And you're right. I through my modalities, the training I went through, I learned myself that there is nobody that's broken. We're all inside of us. We've always been there. We always will be there. We might feel broken because of the pain we're going through. We may feel like we're in pieces, but we're not. Our self is still there. We just have to recognize that. We need to pick up what we think are the pieces behind or wherever it is, but our self is inside. And it's always been there, and it will always continue to be there. And we'll become even better people after we learned what the wisdom was from the experience that we've had. And you're right, it's learning opportunities that we can see that as. And I really like that. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
The best way to do that would be through my website, which is www.evergreenempowerment.com. They can find me on just about every social media platform. I'm not the greatest at Twitter, but I am there. And everywhere it's Evergreen Empower, except there's no E in empower at the end of empower. It's Evergreen EMPOWR. So you can find me there, or my website, or email me at evergreenempower@gmail.com.
Great, excellent. Thank you again, Randi, for sharing your story with us. Thank you, audience, for listening to Randi. And remember, there is a way through your difficulty. Please seek out resources and people who can and will help you. Now, if you're looking for alternative tools for handling difficult times or moving ahead in life, contact us at www.resiliency.coach. Hope you all have a blessed day and a wonderful life. Goodbye.